Welcome to Alumni Connections. I am bringing you the fabulous Dey Armbrister today, class of 2008, formerly part of World DVD, currently working as a Linkage Specialist for AHF, dance background primarily in hip-hop, alumni SUNY new Paltz, pole dance instructor, performer, Black Phoenix Pole and Dance Fitness is the new platform. We're going to get into it. Hang with me. We're going to jump into our theme song. Ride with me. Here we go.
This is the Alumni Connections Project. We all know Randolph is better than the rest. Even when you progress, you still gotta rep. A Phillip Randolph Campus High School, but this is not a test. You should stay. And if you are proud, support it then. Stronger together through unity, better together. Let's build the community. Randolph isn't a school or a building, it's a legacy. It's not in your past, it's your identity. So show some pride. Alumni Connections is sponsored and brought to you by SBI, CCPI, soundbusiness.org, soundbusiness.org. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with the journey doesn't end. This is the Alumni Connections Project. This is the Alumni Connections Project. A Phillip Randolph, A Phillip Randolph, Randolph.
What'd you think about that?
Baby, that's a theme song. Yeah. It brought me back because of Randolph.
Yeah. No, I told her that had to be a part of it. You got to get the Randolph piece in there. That's what caps it. Thanks so much for doing this, Dey, man. So tell us about where you are, present day, what you're doing, what's going on in your life, what you're doing for work, what you're doing for fun. Take us into like right now.
Right.
And I know that some things changed with COVID, just like for everybody. So talk to us a little bit about what's going on now in the moment, what was going on in 2019, and just kind of give us a full picture of Dey in the life of Dey right now. All right.
Day in the life of Dey. What's going on? So, for those who know me, I'm quite sure y'all do. I went to school with y'all, right? My name is DeShaun Armbrister, but I affectionately have gone with Dey since high school. One of my friends, Daryl, actually called me Dey during the AOL era, and I stuck with that. My life currently right now, as my day job, I am a linkage specialist for AHF, which is a global nonprofit that caters to people living with HIV, although we do other preventative work as well too, and advocacy. So basically, I'm like the connection between the community and our healthcare centers. I help people who are living with HIV, newly diagnosed, or looking to return to care, get into our healthcare centers so they can get the care that they need. That includes case management, doctors, and we also have our pharmacy as well too. What else do I do? Because I do a lot, like way too much. I was voted most involved in high school. There's a reason why. So I also, now at this moment in life too, I am a pole dancer. So I started off in World DVD in high school and all that other stuff, whatever the case.
I've seen some of it on TikTok and Instagram. So for those that want to see, you can see.
Definitely. My Instagram is right there, Dey Phoenix, okay? Some of it might not be safe for work, but hey, at this point, we all working from home, so who is it really safe for? So with that being said, pole has really changed my life. It's actually my 3-year anniversary will be in August for pole dancing. I love the sensual movement. I love finding the confidence in your sensuality, your sexuality, and those things. And it's very inclusive in the sense that no matter your body shape, because that's a big thing that people point out, no matter your sexual orientation, how you identify, even if you don't want to completely go with the sexual aspect of it, there's still a place for you to explore in pole. So I'll probably talk a little bit more about that later. And I also am a part of the HIV Stops For Me campaign. For those who need to catch up, I am HIV positive. I've been positive for the past 10 years, and I had joined the campaign last year with 30 of us throughout New York State, funded by the State Department of Health. We go out, we tell our stories to connect with the community, to build, to engage, and to provide resources. in that sense as well too. And I'm also a director of advocacy for Impulse Group. Shout out to my Impulse family. We have chapters all over the globe, but of course, NYC, I'm the director of advocacy for that. So that group specifically is a volunteer group for gay or queer men rather, and we look to support, build, and engage community by being very disruptive. So the way that healthcare, like, you know, organizations are very PC, we do that and take it above and beyond to have real conversations that are necessary. So that's day in the life of Dey, pretty much in 2020.
That's right. And there's a lot of movement going on in the country around queer rights. I think it's an amazing thing. I have family members that, you know, are in that, and I appreciate folks taking the stand and helping, and I also appreciate the strength and empowerment that you have, and then that you are lending on to others with your coming out and being, you know, HIV positive publicly, which is not, I think, something that's easy for everybody to do. So big up to you for that. All right, so let's talk about, because we'll get into kind of more detail about what you're doing now in a bit, but want to rewind that and go back in time a little bit. So take us back to where you were living in junior high. Where were you living in junior high, and then where did you go to junior high, and how did Randolph get on your radar?
Right. So junior high school, I went to a school called Philippa Duke Schuyler School for the Gifted and Talented, IS 383. Shout out to Brooklyn. I'm originally born and raised in Brooklyn, rather, but I was living in Manhattan at the time. So for the last few years of my junior high school career, I was more so like traveling back and forth in Manhattan. How I came across Randolph, actually, I remember some of my schools, I didn't want to go to Brandeis. That was not my gospel. So I did want to, of course, like go to somewhere that was in Manhattan. Some of the schools weren't zoned. I ended up taking a tour of Randolph because, of course, they had that, I don't know if that still exists, but that huge book of all of the high schools that you could sign up for, so to speak. That was on my list, in other words.
I'm hoping it's online now, but yes,
I would hope so.
Last time I checked, it still did exist.
Baby, because that if not the Bible, that's a Bible. It's huge, okay? But I had searched my mom and I, of course, because she's definitely huge on education. Hence why I also continued to college and all other stuff. We went to Randolph. I loved it, to be honest with you. That building for me reminded me of Hogwarts from Harry Potter, the aesthetic, and then this is where dance comes in. So I was actually kind of shy in junior high school. And the first thing that you see when you come into the main doors of Randolph is the auditorium. That stage, when I first saw it, I never had like that, oh my God, I want to be famous buzz, I want to do X, Y, Z, but something pulled me to that stage where I was like, somehow, some fashion.
It's an amazing stage. I talk about it when I talk to people who don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. It's a good stage.
Don't, right. You got to be in that building or see it, because that stage is magical or whatever, right? So that's
definitely shout out to Bianca. I don't know if that's the real last name, but
no, it's Bianca. I love Bianca. Bianca was also on World with me, and she was like a year or two ahead of me or whatnot in terms of graduating. So we had a chance to like foster a relationship, a friendship, and everything else or whatever.
So Bianca, now you know who I am. You got to get in touch with me so we can do your interview too. All right. So sorry to interrupt. So you got in to and saw the stage, and tell us about what it was like as you were, getting into your first year at Randolph.
My first year at Randolph was actually interesting. At that point I wasn't like completely out as a gay guy, so to speak, or whatever the case. So I was playing this whole bisexual card, which did not last long. And it didn't last long for good reason or whatever. But additionally as well too, what was beautiful about it was I did end up making friends, a lot of friends in school, and I ended up getting linked to the senior fashion talent show. That's how I ended up starting the whole journey of dancing in Randolph, in other words. So shout out to David and Mark and all of them or whatever who was part of that board at that time or whatever the case. Lunch was freaking epic, and then when I started fast forwarding, because I'm going through a whole bunch of history, so to speak, I ended up, as Bianca said, she's a co-founder actually of World B DVD. Her and Octavia was the ones who founded that group. I ended up getting linked to them. I did try out for like West Indian or Urban, if I'm not mistaken, but ended up going to World, and the magic happened. Every day for me personally, after that was almost like a stomp the yard type thing where during lunchtime we would have like these little tiny dance battles for fun in the lunchroom, and it's bringing back so many memories now. I'm just thinking, damn, I want to be back at Randolph a tiny bit. I do want to be back a little bit. I had so much fun. I didn't have too much adversity or anything, surprisingly enough, being a Black gay man in high school coming up or whatever the case. I think more so because I was being real with myself, to like, started being even more so real with myself, that I garnered the respect for my peers and things of that nature. And there was a lot of learning moments as well too, for all of us when it came to that type of interaction and stuff. So it was beautiful for me.
That's so awesome. So talk to us as you were going through sophomore, junior year, particularly want to focus on, once you started thinking about post high school life, whether that was going to mean college or something else, what the thought process was, what you were doing junior year, and what you were doing with your summers.
Right. So my summers were very much spent. My summers were very social in the sense that I went to an after-school program at the Hetrick Martin Institute, which does cater to LGBTQ plus youth.
What's the name of it? What's the name of that?
Yeah. So it's the Hetrick Martin Institute. They're located at 2 Astor Place. So if there's anyone that's in the high school or whatever, or honestly, like, they might be going through the queer life, finding their identity and things of that nature, and they don't exactly know who to turn to within the school, they have an after school program, in other words, where it's in like the lower east side-ish Manhattan, like Greenwich Village area, kind of, sort of.
Well, let me tell you this, and hopefully some other folks are watching, because I can advise on a lot of things, but I had no idea that there was something that was aimed towards that community in particular, that provided an after school program. First time I'm ever hearing about it. So for alumni, don't assume that the folks that are in the building necessarily know, and that's why we need alumni involved. I love that. That's
right.
amazing.
Yeah. So to continue that, rather, that's how I was spending my my summers. Rather, like, I had my queer friends out of the APR scope, so to speak, or whatever. There were programs that they had, like internships at the time. The one that I was a part of was called Pop Arts, which is peers outreaching to peers through the arts. So what that program did was that they had a mixture of drama, like theater, in other words, music and dance, to tell stories surrounding HIV awareness and HIV prevention as a youth, in other words. So that's how my summers were. And then there was a little bit of like college prep here and there and stuff like that when it came to like sophomore, junior year. As I had mentioned before, my mom is huge on education, and she always geared me towards going to college, which was something that I do want to do. However, I will admit though, if I could do it all over again, I probably would have focused more on dance, because I did go to school for like public relations. Because I also love to write, I love to connect with people and things of that nature. But when you get into the real world, you realize there's a lot of hurdles that you don't always get a chance to use your college degree for, okay? But with that being said as well, too, I don't regret my college experience either as well, too, because I'm blessed to say through high school all the way through college, I've made lifelong friends. I'm still relatively, I feel at least I'm close to my high school peeps at Randolph. We had a nice reunion we set up like maybe a year or two ago, and like a good majority of us showed up and showed out. And college provided me that same friendships or whatever with the dance team that I was on at that time. So I was, that was very much my track, was to just continue education moving forward. And dance was always just a part of my life, starting more so from high school, even though I did have a background. I started with West Indian in elementary and stuff, but high school was really the pivotal point where I was doing more so like the dance work and all of that other stuff. So yeah, my sophomore and junior years was pretty epic, just dancing on those stages. Ended up getting voted into like student, the student board or whatever. Ended up being a president my senior year. So it was dope.
So how did you get roped in originally?
Mhm.
I know I'm kind of going backward a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'm interested. I know that you said you were part of the Hetrick. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Hetrick Martin Institute.
Yep.
So how did you get roped in, and what other? I know you said you were very involved in high school. So how did you get roped into World Beat, and what are some of the other programs? I'd love to hear just a little bit before we move on to the college experience, and I definitely want to hear a little bit more about like what made you choose SUNY New Paltz and all that. But what organizations were you involved in high school, and how did you get roped into these organizations?
Right. So basically, as I kind of mentioned before, a tiny bit, like Bianca, like my friend group in that regard or whatever, they were involved in World already. They were definitely looking for people to audition. I'm trying to remember because it's been a minute. I'm not sure if I actually auditioned for West Indian, but that was the group that I was considering. And then I had thought, I was like, oh, well, my friends, like, you know, they needed people on World Beat. We could do some different stuff. I'm an Aquarius, so I'm all about like what's not to say unusual per se, but going against the grain type thing. So I was like, oh, well, I see myself in this group. They're gonna like offer some different type of flavor to the performances or whatever the case. And that definitely evolved over time. Like World Beat had evolved. So I got roped in because of beautiful Bianca and Octavia and them or whatever the case may be, David. And come to find out that's actually how, you know, because it was under SBI with Mr. Thompson. Shout out to Mr. Thompson, wherever you are, or whatever.
That's how we get you. We get you, and then it's very interesting that with the Hetrick Martin and that you have the pop arts kind of program because that sounds very similar to exactly what we were doing in the school.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
which if we can go back, because we're getting into some interesting times with SBI as Thompson heads towards retirement here. Let's create some partnerships and whatnot, because if we're doing the same thing, there's no reason for us not to be connected.
True, yeah, definitely. And that's pretty much how I got into there. And I really loved SBI in the sense that it wasn't just about dance. They always had the career day. So what we was doing was we was setting up for this. Like this was stuff that was being planned to prepare us for this day, in other words. So for those out there who's watching weren't really familiar how our career day ran, basically we did it was a day where we did dress up in suits and ties and was really involved to the fact where we was having mock interviews for jobs and things of that nature. So people were coming in to really train us on how to properly have a resume, how to properly answer certain questions for interviews. And I will say that it worked, because any job that I've had, whether it's been retail or even more so recently in like public health and stuff like that, hired on the spot. So shout out to SBI. The skills definitely have worked. I definitely have to say that, and that's with confidence. Every single job I've gotten, I've been hired on the spot for that. So yeah, moving forward as well too, once again, Senior Fashion Talent Show. That's pretty much like all of those circles and stuff where I had met all of these people, and that's how I got into the program. And I enjoy it. I think anyone who's still going to Randolph obviously still should look into that program. If they're not a part of that program, it's the best thing to help you prepare for the outside world, especially when you're at the point in your life, like that middle ground, like junior, senior year, when you're about to step a little bit into adulthood. That's the part where you really, really need to take that program and use it to the best of your ability to just excel further.
So talk to me about, you're in the program, you're doing World Beat, you're looking at Bianca's chiming in here, yes. You're trying to figure out what's going on. So how did you choose the colleges that you were applying to? What colleges did you apply to? What was going through your head?
So at first, what I had wanted to do, I'd always had the plan to go to school remotely. In other words, like leave New York City, right? So I did apply for like.
Yeah, I'm glad you specified on that, because now it means something different to go to school remotely.
Right, because now remotely.
You wanted to go away to school. We understand.
Right. This is Black Mirror, basically. This is what we're doing right now when we talk about remote. But for me at that time, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, or whatever the case, I wanted to go away to college. But then it started to shrink down, going a little bit more locally. I did visit and apply for UPenn. And UPenn was actually really nice. I did apply for Baruch and Hunter. I believe I did get accepted to those, but those are like last resort schools, in other words, because I was saying if I didn't get accepted to any other school that was away, then yes, I would have gone to like a CUNY. But New Paltz for me, it was close proximity. It was only an hour and a half away. I did the school tour where they set you up with a mentor. They give you a tour of the school, the different programs. So they had like SMP, which is a student mentorship program that was meant for like PLC students up there. And that was pretty awesome. I met an amazing mentor. Shout out to Ty Belton out there. Hey, y'all. And that's how I ended up going to New Paltz, because additionally, I found out about a dance team up there called Culture Shock.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found out about Culture Shock, I was like, somehow in some fashion, there's always that somehow in some fashion. How the hell do I get there? How do I get to that one point?
I was going to say, because we've had a good number, I want to say, of people that have attended SUNY New Paltz. So were there folks that went with you to SUNY New Paltz, and have you connected with other alumni from Randolph at New Paltz?
There was only one, funny enough, only one person from Randolph, Janaris. She's my homegirl too, or whatever the case. And she had went with me from Randolph to New Paltz. So there was that familiarity. Like I would see her around, hang out and stuff like that as well too.
I'm not sure about previous years, but there's definitely been Randolph alumni. So I'm glad that we're talking, because I definitely want to connect you to the people that have graduated in more recent years from. So you got connections with them because they graduated from Randolph and because they graduated New Paltz.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I'm about to say, so if they from New Paltz, they should know about Culture Shock. Hopefully Culture Shock.
Well, they definitely do. They definitely do.
Right, because we had a legacy. I'm just saying. I'm tooting the horn. We have a legacy.
It's still around, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, it still is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be that nosy grandma on their Instagram, looking like, oh, what y'all doing? So, because at one point, in my senior year of college, I ended up being the vice president of the team. I was on the e-board for a little bit and ended up transitioning to being the vice president. And my best friend, she's still, well, all my dance team people, they're still my best friends. So I still hang out with them. But yeah, she was my president. I was the vice president, and we just made it work. We made the magic work.
So let me get into a little bit of the nitty gritty. So senior in Randolph, we're transitioning SUNY New Paltz. I know you said you took the tour. What was like the final decision? What the financial package looked like? How did you make some of those decisions?
Right. So I don't exactly remember too much the financial package, but I definitely do remember that it was much cheaper, say, to like UPenn. Or like, I don't know the exact numbers, in other words.
Well, yeah, I know. I can imagine with UPenn, not only more expensive, but I mean, it's a huge school.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I think it's pretty. I don't know what the exact time of travel there is, but it's a little further away. Right. And I just can't imagine that experience would be anything like SUNY New Paltz. I've been on SUNY New Paltz's campus, and they definitely have a good arts feel. I love their like fine arts program. I know I've been in those rooms with the individual offices for those art students. It's pretty wild. And then even in some of the computer rooms, technology spaces where they have some pretty cool stuff. But I can't imagine, I'm sure UPenn has top of the line stuff, but it would be one of tens of thousands of students on that campus, I think. Yeah,
exactly. And for me, the deciding factor was those things. So like in terms of expenses for traveling, like it relatively was very cheap to travel to and from New Paltz on the bus. And at some point I ended up like sharing. Well, not really sharing. My mom was just always really nice because she lived in New York, and she figured that, with the car that we had, that if I needed to like go back and forth from school or whatever, she was like, oh, you can have the car. So, because she knew I didn't get into no accidents and no tickets. So that's why she allowed me to have the car.
For any young people, being responsible pays off, right? I mean, it's nice.
It does, baby. It does. So, but no, those were definitely deciding factors, like the fine arts studio that you had mentioned, the dance spaces, the gym, and everything else. The student plaza, now they have that giant like pyramid thing for the student union building. I was actually on campus when they were building that up, so that wasn't always there. But it was beautiful when they had bought it at that point, because they had like the sushi station. The meal plan was actually really good. At some point, it kind of like ran out like towards the end of the semester. But me and my friends, we always had a system was like, listen, I got a little more money. If you need something from Oscars, or they call it something else now. I don't even know if it's called Oscars anymore.
You made it work within your community.
We made it work. Listen, when you go to college, I don't care what anybody says, you will struggle, okay? So make sure that you got your community that will help you out, okay? Like those true friends that'll be able to kind of help you when you're a little bit low on your meal plan, or if you need a study buddy to like stay. Community really does help. Because that was my main thing as well too. Granted, like Janaris, once again, she was the only person from Randolph that came with me. But making new friends in that sense, even though I don't think it's hard for me to make friends, but with any experience, you're in a new environment. So I was able to like really gravitate, towards some really dope and amazing individuals, and we held each other afloat, especially in college. That was the time, my pushing on the sophomore year rather, is when I was diagnosed HIV positive. So that's where I found my tribe, and they have been behind me through every step of the way, including now. So.
Wow, that's wild to figure that out in college, because you got a lot going on. You're trying to get through your studies. How did you manage the pressure of sort of something? I mean, I imagine that's not a life-changing thing that you were going through. How did you handle that?
So it was rough, in all honesty. Because like you just mentioned, you're thinking about financial aid. Granted, I was blessed to HMI had a scholarship program, and I was the first one for all 4 years of college to get that scholarship. But tying it back to the HIV portion, it was definitely rough. I had to worry about setting up insurance plans. I had to worry about my studies, trying to keep my head together. Because at that point, no matter how many people would tell you, oh, it's not a death sentence, so to speak, or maybe the scope of it changed, there's still that stigma. Once you get HIV, you're wondering, okay, like, where's my life going to head? And that's what I was feeling at that time. I did have that heavy feeling of like, okay, all of the goals and aspirations, like I always wanted to open a dance studio in essence. And I felt that that wasn't going to be possible because I wasn't sure what my life would look like within the next few years. How did I get through it? Dance. Dance is my number one thing that has saved me. I didn't tell my mom until later on in the game, so to speak. So I was up at school, and of course I had my friends that I had told. And my homegirl Maya, once again, she pretty much put it in me, and I'll never forget, like, loosely speaking, while you are HIV positive, this is not just solely you. You will get through this and dance it out. And that sounds corny, it sounds cliche, but she was definitely right, because there was times, and still even now, where I feel if I didn't have the exact answers, if I didn't know what to say, how to say it, how to verbalize it, I'm able to move, and I'm able to get that energy out in that regard, where I can tell my story through my body in that sense. And dance has been a very, 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 very helpful thing in terms of like being my therapy, being my spiritual space as well too. So all 4 years, once again, if there was something that I needed to do, I took it out on the dance floor, I took it out on the stages, and that's how I survived college, through dance, and through my friends. And once again, when I did tell my mom, of course, once my mom found out, I was able to live my life a little bit more better, because she was always and still is my main concern when it comes to those type of things.
I admire that so much. I mean, I've had these conversations with other alumni, and there's no judgment on any person, but somebody that their parent passes away, other major changes going on in life, and their studies are affected. So for you to go through something and to relatively go through that and keep and maintain and keep moving forward is so big. I love the piece about dance as well, because they're talking about, there's a lot of depressed people right now with everything going on in the world, and talking about movement being such a big part of keeping your positivity. And I know for me, a big focus of my life and my day right now is making sure I get out in the morning and get that physical exercise. It makes me feel better and more apt to take on the day. So I love that piece of it. It's such a big thing. And I think it's, you had somebody pass away, go out and dance or go out and exercise. you know what? There's something to it. You know, get out, get moving, get some fresh air moving through your body. It will change your frame of mind. Unfortunately, stuff happens, right? And it's how we deal with it. It's how we get up and how we keep moving on. So I admire that in your story a lot. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so talk to us. You're in college. You're moving through this. You're getting into junior and senior year. What's going on in your mind?
Right. So junior and senior year, what the hell's going to happen after I graduate, right? So I'm thinking, like I had mentioned before, I went to school for public relations, minor in Black or African diaspora studies as well too. So it was more so about like I did find an internship or a few internships that were in alignment with that. My first internship was with the Brittle agency, who was a PR firm, black woman owned PR firm rather. She's worked for people like Mariah Carey, amongst other people. And that was an experience for me, to be honest with you, because I really realized which I appreciate now. I'm not going to lie to anyone to say I'm the easiest person to do it, because sometimes I could be very much like stubborn with certain things. But she taught me how cutthroat the industry could be and to always be on your toes. So while there were moments where she may have gotten on us, or it may have felt like, oh shoot, like she over here cursing us out, blah, 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 that was needed in a sense. And it wasn't necessarily in disrespect per se, more than like you have to be prepared for whatever comes at you in this sense, especially because with media, things have to go kind of like fast. In other words, there's deadlines that you got to meet. Like, you know, you have to produce certain content for people and things of that nature. So that was like crash course. During my senior year, I was able to finally, actually, I applied for like a Viacom internship rather, and I ended up working under Logo TV. So I was like partially doing contributor writing for them, and also like going out to different events, interviewing people, finding little pop culture things to put on newnownnext.com. If you actually search, you probably might still be able to find like my articles that I have written on there. If you search Dey Armbrister, New Now Next, I'm probably got stuff there. So that was me trying to set myself up, like, you know, for the outside world to transition. I definitely did internships in that way. And then the challenge did come once again, real world. So after graduating college, which was great, it was good, you know, whatever the case may be, I did enter into the real world where even though I was still doing a contributing and writing portion of it, the reality of it was with media, a lot of the stuff is freelance. And you don't all the way know how to get to the point, okay, where how do you monetize this? You know, like you're literally doing things for the exposure at this point. And for me personally, there was only but so much exposure that I could really do because I didn't have finances per se to really get to every single place in XYZ. And I fell into the retail trap, y'all. I say it's a trap. I did fall into the retail trap. My very first job was Macy's. I'm gonna cut it there. Let's say that was my first job, and yeah, about that. And then and then fast forwarding now that or whatever the case, I think the silver lining for it was that although I like, you know, I went through retail for a good 4 years or so or whatever, but it was time for me where I was like, I need to do something personally that had purpose. And I started to kind of ponder like, well, what can exactly I do with the day job? Because there's certain things that I just didn't see myself doing. Like, you know, I have respect for lawyers. I have respect for doctors and all that other stuff. Do I see myself doing that? No. And of course, as a creative, once again, you kind of want to be like, okay, well, what can I do to create? But at one point I did have to settle myself down, like, okay, a 9 to 5 has to happen, at least for finances. And I knew I was passionate about HIV because I live with it. So my first door was working with PrEP, which that's a medication that helps prevent HIV for those who are negative. It's not a vaccine, but it is. It does help protect your immune system in the event that you may be compromised or whatever the case. I was working for a nonprofit at that time for like a good 2 years or so, and then ended up transitioning into AHF, which is where I work now. So I've only been with AHF for a little over a year. 'Cause my ultimate goal when it came to working a day job, so to speak, was to transition into the corporate world. So I was working for a nonprofit at that time for like a good 2 years or so, and then ended up transitioning into AHF, which is where I work now. So I've only been with AHF for a little over a year, because my ultimate goal when it came to working a day job, so to speak, was to finally work with people living with HIV. So in that way I can connect with them. And if they have certain questions that I might be able to answer from lived experience, which I've seen work, there's plenty of clients
No,
who
that
come in
sounds
the door,
amazing.
whatever the case. Yeah. And it definitely does work. At one point, even though, yes, I was negative before I was positive, but you really find the value in connecting with people when you have the same shared experience. So while I do care about people staying negative and like not contracting HIV and XYZ, my concern was more so about how are people living with HIV moving forward, and them knowing that there is still a light at the end of the tunnel. And I always tell people that HIV is not just about the virus, but it's a mental health.
Yeah.
It's about mental health as well too. So if you don't have like the mental health together, everything else could kind of fall out of line. In that
Well,
sense as
I
well
think
too.
that's something that we're experiencing, and people are getting a little bit more comfortable talking about in the national and international dialogue. This idea of stress and post-traumatic syndrome and the effects of mental health on everyday life for anybody that's dealing with, whether it's HIV or right now what we're going through. I mean, I can't imagine what a junior or a senior in high school that is going through these transitions, and they're thinking about the rest of their life, and maybe their finances aren't in a place where they're like, no sweat, I'll be okay.
Right.
Like this really I talk to the business people, and we're struggling in different ways, but there's nothing sinking under the house that I know. Like I don't know what I don't know, and I don't worry about that.
Right.
We got credit, and we might be in a little bit more in debt or whatever the case may be. But for somebody that was counting on these next 2 years to be their ticket out of a hard situation, or the start of their life, that mental health thing. And then when you get into what you're talking about, someone's like, I can't imagine what you were feeling like when you were in college and finding out in the midst of trying to figure out the rest of your life.
Exactly.
what's going on with the rest? How long do I have to live? And that sort of thing. It plays out in my head. Like, you're dealing with death is one thing, but dealing with your own mortality is it's a whole nother bag.
Different ballpark. Yeah. And then the beauty of it is, I will say though, that I was blessed to have the doctors that I did. And I know we do talk about like the affordability of medication and all that other stuff. And that's the reason why I do the work that I do, because maybe I know for a fact, not a lot of people, of course, would know that there's programs to help you get medication for free, or to help with those expenses or whatever. Like there's ADAP that exists. There's like the Gilead program, all of those other things that really can help alleviate the financial pressures of maintaining your HIV in that sense. Like even with my job, we don't turn anyone away regardless of your ability to pay or like your lack of insurance, because we're able to take you in, and every 96 cents of every dollar that comes from our pharmacy and like another thing called Out of the Closet, it's like a thrift store, goes right back in the client care, so we can do that for the clients. So it's more so, once again, it's like, where do you get the resources? Where do you get the information from? And when it does come to POC, when it comes to Black people specifically, because that's how I identify, of course, I do this work. So because we are still disproportionately being diagnosed with HIV, even though like we're not the majority per se or whatever, but it's still very imbalanced. So for me, it's important for my people to know, whether you're cisgender, you're gay, you're straight, whatever the case may be, those programs exist. Come get those services. Like get the services somewhere, so that way you can at least start the process of leading that better life, because not the end of the tunnel. And then the beauty of it as well too, I never thought that I would see the day where if you are what they call HIV positive undetectable, that means you have very, very, very minimal amount of the virus in your body, like less than 20. It's a certain number that you cannot pass it on to your partner, in essence. So that's a very, and the CDC approved, that's the truth. So, people use condoms and stuff still. I do push that. I also do push choice and things of that nature. But in essence, there's all of these things out here that is helping protect one another. So you have PrEP and PEP, which those are the preventative measures for people not living with HIV. And then, of course, like the ARVs or the antiretroviral medications that's helping suppress our virus so we're not passing it on to somebody else in that sense. And that's the, like, the education behind it. And that's how you take away the stigma, because I think most times, duly noted, the HIV era happened. The pandemic happened at that time, and a lot of people definitely did die, and that's traumatic. Some people have PTSD from that. But in essence, is to remember that point and see where we came from now, or where we're here now. And now, not to say that HIV is not a big deal, it still is, but you just got to educate yourself on, like, longevity. In other words, that longevity is possible, that your lifespan could definitely still go on once you just have the proper tools and like the proper information.
That's amazing. I'm hoping that somebody watches this and is discovering something that they didn't know before, because I think, for me, you definitely hit some points where I'm not as informed and didn't know. So it was helpful to me. I think it's really interesting how far we have come and how far we have to go.
Right.
I know there are several nonprofits and medical research centers that are dedicated to obliterating HIV as a virus, that are, who knows, tomorrow might be the day that something happens and we can say goodbye to it. So hopefully we get there.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what's going on now. I think you've got us pretty caught up to date with your history.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what you're getting into. I'll throw up your Instagram so people can look there to follow you. But talk to us about, I know, we talked about the HIV and what does AHF stand for, by the way?
Oh yeah, so AHF stands for AIDS Healthcare Foundation.
Okay.
They started out in Los Angeles, actually, as a hospice before, like during the HIV epidemic, and they evolved once again to a global nonprofit. So we're not just in the U.S., we're definitely like all around the world, servicing definitely more than 1.4 million people living with HIV, if I'm not mistaken, globally. It probably has increased since then as well too.
So we know you're doing that work. So talk to us about this Black Phoenix dance and all that. And then what I really want to get into is like, how can people follow you, and how can people help you out, and then what are things that you're looking for. So I know that's a lot to get into. So I'm going to disappear a moment. I'm going to pull the Instagram up.
Yeah, you're good. So when it comes, first and foremost, my Instagram, I have two. The first one down here, which is in my name, is Phoenix. However I'm pointing, whatever the case may be, is with the 3, because that's my life path number and for innovation. And additionally, Black Phoenix Dance. So to explain what that is, Black Phoenix Pole and Dance Fitness is my baby. That's my virtual online version of what I want my studio to be. So I started pole dancing on transparency because I've always had a fantasy of being a stripper. And that's pretty much where it is. And I tell people who are into pole fitness and things of that nature, yes, you might be here for fitness, but know where it's come from, like where the groundwork is or whatever. So with that being said, I'm also a sex worker ally, where like, I'm aware of like all of the laws and stuff like that that's hindering people who strip, who do other forms of sex work and all that other stuff, right? When it comes to Black Phoenix Dance, it is geared towards people of color. And once again, it doesn't matter if you're a woman, because predominantly women do pole dance, but other gender expressions as well too, other body expressions as well too. Is all for the focus is people of color owning their sensuality and finding power within that. For me personally, I'm not gonna lie, I have been a very shy person. And because of pole dance and because of being able to be
you are shy.
Surprisingly, I could be shy. Tiny bit.
I just want to call attention to this. So we're throwing up. I went to the link tree. I see you got shirts online so people can support you by buying some merch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can actually. So I'm going to even make that live at this moment or whatever, because I did have it up before. You could definitely buy that merchandise right there. and there's another shirt line I have that's called like Black Magic is Real, which is supposed to, half of my profits that I'm giving from that shirt line is going to go towards a fund that helps Black femmes in any type of crisis. So I'll also, it's on Bonfire. If you go to my page in my link tree,
Yeah, I got it.
Black Phoenix Dance, and yeah, you'll be able to see that. But yeah, so that's pretty much my platform. Once again, I actually do instruct pole at this moment. It's turned into virtual classes. But not only do I do pole, because guess what? I'm a dancer, right? So I teach I teach floor work, which you do not need a pole for. I have taught chair dance classes for that type of movement. I'm also looking into doing more tutorials for like flexibility training and things of that nature. So my platform at this moment, if anyone goes to blackphoenixdance.com, that specifically is my Patreon. So if you want to have a membership, what you get from that Patreon is monthly tutorials. You also get like different footage for like photo shoots that I've done, full performances that I've done. I recently did a performance for a show called Dance Amplified, and I made like a little music video to Beyonce's Black Parade, so you can check that out there too. Yeah, blackphoenixdance.com is the main way to support me. Other than that, Venmo, Cash App, Black Phoenix Dance too. You know, you can always tip a girl. What's up? Make that money, don't let it make you. Those pretty much like, yeah, that's that. One day I do hope to bring it storefront. When all of this clears out, that's part of like my 5-year plan is to open my studio still. But in the meantime, because of COVID and because of what we're doing now, the virtual platform is where I'm at. So my Instagram is usually where everything is popping, even though I do have a Dey Phoenix page. That's my stage name, y'all, Dey Phoenix. But the Instagram is pretty much where all of my material, you can find out all of the information if you go to the Instagrams. Oh, yeah. Other than that, like, there's just so much. Once again, I started last year, not last year, I'm sorry, 3 years ago. Time has went by fast. So 3 years ago, how I ended up started pole dancing, there was an event called Pole Play NYC. It was on a Wednesday, Pole Play Wednesday, and it was at this place called House of Yes. And it was an open pole night. They didn't care about your level. They didn't care about what you do, so to speak, or whatever. They just wanted to promote community within pole, so now people can express themselves freely. And because of my dance background, and once again, the whole fantasy aspect of wanting to be a stripper, I tried it out. I didn't know what I was doing, but it awoken something in me. For a while, I felt that dance wasn't exactly, I wasn't being represented because I do like more feminine movement. And even though there's definitely gay men in the dance industry, but I did notice that a lot of times they wanted the men to dance like men. And I don't like being boxed in that sense. So certain things like that kind of hindered me, self-doubt and all that other stuff. And then pole was the one thing that really raised my confidence, because I was able to express myself in a way that I like to express myself. I saw other men, other Black men expressing themselves the way I like to express myself. Shout out to Bentley Rebel out there, wherever you are, because he was the first Black male pole dancer that I saw. So once again, I bought a pole. I was living with my mom at the time, like a few stops uptown or whatever. She allowed me to get a pole for the living room. I was practicing on my own. I'm a self-taught pole dancer. And then I fast forward, found my pole Beyonce. Her name is Carmine. Wherever you are out there, Carmine, hey, what's up? I started taking classes from her, and the rest is history. Like I ended up getting my certification a year after started pole dancing, because there's actual certification programs to become an instructor. Because it involves a lot. You got to know your muscle groups. You got to know things in order to not injure yourself, even from the smallest things of like your wrist. You know, like you have to know your body in essence, or whatever the case may be. So it's work, but it's work that I love.
So I'm sorry, my computer just decided to completely freeze. So I'm sure it'll kick in here, and then there'll be all sorts of feedback. So I know that people can connect with you on the Instagram. Talk to us about other ways that people can connect with you, other ways that you'd like to work with people, especially alumni. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so when it comes to other alumni, most definitely, like, you know, pole dance is a full gamut. And you can even see on my Instagram the different ways that I've explored it. So yes, there's sensuality, but there's also been times, especially during COVID and the whole race wars that we're currently going through, where I've had more expressive movement, in other words, where it wasn't as sexual in a certain regard, because once again, dance for me is therapy. Dance for me is a spiritual connection. It's for me to like really tell my story. So if there's any artists out there, because I know a lot of alumni, like, you know, they probably either do music or photography and stuff like that. If y'all are looking to collaborate in that sense, to create, look me up, okay? Even if it's like just regular dance, because I still, well, not regular dance, but I still do a little hip hop, a little something, something, whatever the case may be. If you need somebody for like a backup dancer on your video shoot or something like that, hit me up, find me, or whatever the case, I'll definitely do it. And once again, if you want to connect with me, primarily Instagram is the best place. But if you didn't find me through Facebook, I'm Dey Armbrister, you know. You can definitely connect with me there. I'm usually always on Facebook as well too. And yeah, I would say Instagram and Facebook are the two main ways to get to me. Definitely follow me on those two avenues, and you can definitely connect with me for whatever.
All right, and for yeah, I know you're talking about, you know, folks, you know, potentially using you on the dancing side, on advocacy and like community issues. I know we have nurses. What are some things that you might be looking for in terms of collaboration, or maybe your organization?
Oh yeah. So actually, that's good to note as well too, right? So as I had mentioned, I do a lot. When it comes to the advocacy portion, I am part of, once again, the HIV Stops With Me campaign, rather. So if you need someone to come do a speaking engagement, it's not a thing where it's like, oh, you hit me up, you pay me. I will come, pop up with my materials. I have like posters and stuff like that and palm cards that I could give. I will be able to actually talk to community. If you want me to talk to youth, I could surely actually tailor a conversation surrounding HIV and you know, treatment and prevention for youth when it comes to like high school kind of transitioning into college. So as long as it's local, like within New York, definitely contact me. Or at this moment, we're crossing borders because we're virtual. So if you do happen to like want to connect with me, find me through Facebook rather. That'll be the best way to hit me up in Messenger and just reach out to me. That also does go for AHF as well too, because technically a part of my work for AHF is outreach and going into the community and let them know about our services. So I'm not sure how that would look in the sense of COVID going to pop out as much as they would love us to do so. But we have to realize that as much as we want things to go back to normal, everything won't be back to normal. With that being said, any virtual avenues that you have where I could probably speak, give you a little bit of history about AHF and our services. Once again, just if you need me to speak about HIV, part of the HIV Stops With Me campaign, pretty much what I'm doing right now, contact me and I'll definitely be there. Because once again, especially if you work in communities of color, or like Black and brown communities or whatever, we need to have that information out there. And it kind of does sadden me that a lot of us don't always have those answers and don't have those resources. So use me to your advantage. I will make the time, especially if it's well in advance or whatever the case. I will come talk. And as y'all can tell, I love to talk. Okay, so definitely reach out if you need me for any of those things.
Bianca says she needs a t-shirt.
Oh, baby, I got you. I got you with a t-shirt, most definitely.
And before we go, because I've been wondering, I'm upsetting, what is it? It's upsetting me and my ancestors.
It's upsetting me and my ancestors, yes. Okay, racism is upsetting me and my ancestors. The blatant disrespect to Black trans women is upsetting me and my ancestors. Blatant disrespect towards Black people in general, and it's not just, yes, it's the police brutality that is the focus, because a lot of our Black and brown men have been killed. Our Black and brown women as well have been killed. But we also have to realize that racism is not just about the violent portion. Also, it is our system. It is ingrained. Even down to the dance community, there's been certain levels of racism when you talk about the erasure of like hip hop, turning hip hop into street jazz. What does that even mean? I'm being disrespectful in saying that, yes. is just the truth. You know, hip hop is a cultural thing that Black and brown people have cultivated, and then certain circles come in and then they change into something different, and then they make all these requirements. Or they may not see that hip hop is like an advancement, so to speak, but you have to have XYZ training in ballet and all these other things or whatever. Totally taking away the fact that some of these other dance forms do need the flowers as well too. So I'm at a point now where we need to still stand up and we need to talk about all of the things. When I say we, I mean Black and brown people need to start speaking against all of the injustices, and also come up with a game plan, come up with an action plan. So that way we can have those changes. And I say this to anyone, you don't have to be a political buff, while it does help to know the system and things of that nature, but use whatever avenues that you have. For me, I'm a creator, so I legit, even though, yes, I pole dance and the whole stripping aspect and all that other stuff, I have made at least 2 productions, visual productions, that are addressing like Black Lives Mattering, that's addressing defunding the police, that's addressing saving our Black trans women. You know what I'm trying to say? Like all of those things. Use your platform so you don't upset me and my ancestors.
Love that. All right. Have you connected with Ricky Thomas, another one of our
I see him.
alumni?
I see him periodically. I love Ricky. He's Ricky is definitely from my class, my graduating class, and I give Ricky his flowers all the time. He is an outstanding, epic, monumental, talented dancer. And I love it. You know, I do feel bad because there was points like there was physical reunions for Randolph, but either it was a job or something that kind of got in the way that I hadn't gotten a chance to support. But my love is always there, and I make sure when I do see him out in public, I'm like, Ricky, you just always have done it for me. So, Ricky, I hope you watch this back at some point, or Cameron, if you want to tell him too.
Well,
I love me from the outright, yeah.
Surprisingly, because he's been involved with SBI doing productions, surprisingly, I haven't had him on for an interview. That's not for lack of trying. So I gotta get him going and get him locked in for a date. But I definitely want to make sure that you guys stay in touch. If you don't have contact information, definitely reach out to me, especially with what's going on right now. I think there's a lot of room for collaboration and putting heads together to think through some, especially, and what made me think of it was talking about, you know, putting together some creative ideas for productions and pieces together. The current students definitely need some things to get their hands on in terms of material and support. And I think that it might be a great opportunity for you, because it'll be a way to expand your brand and what you're doing in terms of the creative pieces and the outreach. I think that would be amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this, Dey. I know we've talked a little bit about it, but just say it one more time, how people can get in touch with you on IG and Facebook.
Right. So yeah, so for Instagram specifically, I have 2 pages. One is Pole Phoenix. So that is actually at the bottom of my screen. POLEPHO3 NIX. That 3 is important. And the second page would be Black Phoenix Dance. So the Black Phoenix Dance one, of course, there's no special characters, just Black Phoenix Dance. That one is more so tailored, where you could get all of my class updates and know what's going on with like my workshops and performances and stuff as well too. Facebook, most definitely Dey Armbrister, where you see right here. If you didn't get here through Facebook, you can connect with me on Facebook as well too. I have Messenger and all that other stuff, so those would be the avenues.
Beautiful. All right, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm gonna try to play this. I think my computer's sort of come back, so I'll try to play this, the theme song out. Let's see if it works. If I can make it, we can rock out to a little Randolph.
Right.
Let's see. Sometimes it delays. There we go. Maybe, sorta, kinda. I got the PPP loan for my business, so I may be investing in a new computer, because this one's good, but it's from 2011. So
yeah,
it's feeling it.
Yeah, I finally upgraded my laptop.
All right.
This is the Alumni Connections Project. We all know Randolph is better than the rest. Even when you progress, you still gotta rep. A Randolph Campus High School, but this is not a test. You should say it with your chest. Be proud of your origin, and if you are proud, support it then. Stronger together through unity, better together. Let's build the community. Randolph isn't a school or a building. It's a legacy. It's not in your past, it's your identity. So show some pride. Alumni Connections, sponsored and brought to you by SBI, CCPI, soundbusiness.org, soundbusiness.org. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end. The journey doesn't end. This is the Alumni Connections Project. This is the Alumni Connections Project. 8 Philip Randolph, 8 Philip Randolph, Randolph.
All right, say goodbye to everybody, Dave. Thanks for doing this.
Bye, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate y'all. And listen, stay in formation. That's all I gotta say.
Take it easy. Peace. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Hang on for me 1 second.
Gotcha.